This is a fictional mindbender. So I just finished the last episode of this great anime series called Lazarus. And it's a show done by the legendary Shinichiro Watanabe, who created the masterpieces Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo. This video, though, isn't about the plot, but rather its central protagonist, Axel Gilberto. When I first heard about the series from a YouTube channel and I saw the character, I immediately knew who did the show just based on the character design. I mean, hell, anyone familiar with any of the other shows probably immediately thought, oh shit, they brought back Spike, or Mugen, or whatever. More or less just assumed that he was going to be the same type of guy. For whatever reason, Watanabe seems to be quite fond of the lanky, floppy, messy-haired, like Afro devil-may character who always seems to move with an unorthodox style like Jikundo or capoeira to the beat of some sort of track that isn't exactly Japanese. And this video is basically about that. The similarities and differences between Lazarus' Axel, Samurai Champloo's Mugen, and Cowboy Bebop's Spike. There was a constant comparison, and it's understandable as to why. And while on the surface they seem like a copy and paste of the same type of character, I don't think that's entirely true, and I'll explain why. Regarding the similarities, all three characters have mysterious but criminal backgrounds. Axel being an ex-con, Spike being a former gangster and gunman, and Mugen being a murderous and lecherous pirate. And because of his background, their fighting techniques are unorthodox, not known within the universes that they exist in. Though I've heard that all three were in the same universe, which begs other questions which I'm not going to go into right now. All three are relatively antisocial, to the point that the viewer wonders if they are sociopaths or just that apathetic. But they also fall within a group of companions that leads them to something of a change of heart, though never entirely. But that's about where the similarities end. Despite their physical and character likenesses, each is their own separate individual, and on a deeper level, really entirely different. Let's start with Mugen. He's arguably the only one of the three closest to being an actual psychopath, and it's made clear in Champloo's first episode that this man has a body count even before our introduction to him. Having grown up on the Ryukyu Islands, now known as Okinawa, Edo area of Japan's version of a ghetto. Mugen came from a world where kindness and empathy were weaknesses and a joke. Survival and indulging one's own vices was all that mattered because life was cheap anyways, including their own. Mugen rejects social norms except those that feed his vices. He's a man who doesn't think about nor care about the future because you could be dead the next day, and no one is trustworthy because everyone will stab you in the back to feed their own vices. So you might as well do it first. But as the show progresses, this starts to change. Even him having left the Ryukyu Islands in the first place is a sign that he may have been starting to want something more. While I wouldn't necessarily say that Mugen grows a moral spine, he does start to reveal some sense of empathy and honor, while still being an ego-driven narcissist. Even the show's through line of his ongoing rivalry with Jin bears the hallmarks of these nuances. Mugen can't stand Jin because he can't just simply kill him like he does everybody else. Yet he also comes to deeply respect Jin, and even eventually comes to regard him as a friend for basically the same reasons. Even as they finally had their last duel by the final episode. By the show's end, Mugen is still Mugen, but there's definitely a lighter tone or aura to him now. His adventures with Fu and Jin have left him a changed but still dangerous man. On to Spike from Cowboy Bebop. Also, he too has a cynical view of the world, having grown up in the Syndicate, a mob group based on Mars. However, it's his affair with Julia prior to the beginning of the show that marks him as different from Mugen. When we meet Spike, he's very chill and also a very capable and determined fighter and bounty hunter. But he also still has something of a moral compass somewhere underneath his suit, wit, and dark sense of humor. Spike lives day by day with his partner and friend Jet, but he's not a narcissist. He's clearly trying to make a living as a bounty hunter, while also seeing the humor in it at certain points, even when he doesn't want to. Even his Jeet Kune Do tends to reflect this, a form that flows like water, but is also very focused and not chaotic, compared to Mugen's Champloo style, something that Mugen was criticized for by the few people who actually beat him. And though Spike lives on the edge of society, he doesn't reject it, but accepts it for what it is and just tries to make his way in it the best that he can. He doesn't seem to spend time dwelling on the deeper mysteries of his life until towards the end of the series. Speaking of which, his journey with his companions leads the man on a journey to confront his own past that is now trying to actively kill him. A past that he himself actually will not let go of, even despite the plea of his friends. Spike is antisocial, but learns to be more social around the insane cast of characters who come crashing into his life. Ayn, Faye, and Ed. And despite himself, does grow to become close to them. Even Ayn, the genius Corgi, whom Spike said hates dogs. And when the group eventually starts to come apart, towards the end of the series, there's a subtle but clear sense of mourning from him that I don't think even Julia quite earned, if I'm being honest. When Julia dies, he tends to accept it because his darker nature just assumes that their lives are a curse anyway. But when Ed, Ayn, and Faye leave, Spike, while not upfront about it, is unusually silent and contemplative, smoking a cigarette, not saying anything. Like some other part of him that he was trying to hide from actually did come to enjoy their company, and now he senses that time is leaving. So that all he really has left is his private obsession with settling his past, which again won't leave him alone. A settling that, unlike with Mugen, he doesn't survive. So, how does Axel Gilberto from Lazarus fit into all this? What's his connection between the two, if he has any? Well, other than looking like them, Axel starts out completely different in all ways except one from Spike and Mugen. Axel has a checkered past, but it's nowhere near as bad as Mugen's, and might be somewhere closer to Spike's level, though his adolescence is still a mystery, other than him and a close group of friends doing what they did to survive and his friends not surviving the experience. Yet despite this, Axel doesn't carry it around as a baggage like his peers did, at least not as much. We never see in Lazarus any point where Axel's past influences his present life choices, and this is also reflected in his parkour-style Jeet Kune Do, never looking back and always moving forward, never staying in one place, even prisons, until he gets drafted by the Lazarus Project. So, it might seem, and I've seen some people say this, that there isn't really any kind of character development from Axel because of all the elements that would normally factor into the need for development being not there, and the fact that the show was only 13 episodes long. The one thing Axel seems to carry around with him is an unwillingness to get close to other people, and like his parkour style, just ups and leaves with no formality. But this in fact was his development. It's just hidden under all his chill. Arguably, Axel being the most chill of all three characters. Axel has questions about society, but he never lets that slow him down nor darken his perceptions of it. He's surprisingly an optimist, actually, as he points out in the final episode. When the world tries to screw him over, he just adapts and runs through it without stopping, and with no malice towards other people. Even Spike, chill as he was, had a level of low-key malice to him. And Axel's evolution was learning to accept people again, to get close to be willing to stay in one place of his own free will, rather than as something to keep at arm's length. And the other major difference with Axel from Spike and Mugen is that Spike and Mugen are killers, straight up. Mugen probably the most obvious, but even Spike. However, Axel is not a killer. He's a criminal, yes, but not a killer. There are several points in the show where he has a chance to kill people, but there's only one moment where he actually does take lives, and even then, that was during a shootout to save one of his friends. And this, I think, is a major component to why he's that different to Spike and Mugen. Even the ending of the show, though, reflects this, because Watanabe is notoriously great at bringing together random group of characters with seemingly nothing in common, throwing them into a series of hijinks that bind them together and us to them at the same time, and then breaks it apart. Basically that either some of them die or they just all go their separate ways after a time. Lazarus, however, breaks this trope by having everyone survive and choosing to remain together by the end of the series. And it's telling that it's Axel who gets the last say in the choice. Someone who at the beginning held one of them at gunpoint just to break free, and now agreeing to stay with his newfound family with a smart-ass grin on his face. And this basically contributes to just the lighter air of the show overall compared to the previous two. Again, all three being great. And that's my breakdown of why these three characters from three great shows are not just carbon copies of each other, but rather templates which the other is built from in a way. They are all similar for certain, but underneath all the flash, they are different people. But let me know your own thoughts below, including if you didn't like the show, or maybe you did like the show. This is The Fictional Mindbender, and you guys have a good day.